Good morning, everyone. So I made this card a few weeks back, and this featured the new paper from the Eden's Garden suite. This is a pre-order that's available to demonstrators. It is a stamp set, and then there's a coordinating die set. And we also have some really pretty paper. I cut all mine down to 6x6, so I would be sure to use it, but you can see there's lots of different papers. So I have lots of each because I cut them down from 12 by 12, but this doesn't even show all of it. It's a huge pack of 12 by 12 that I cut down. But I had some extra paper that was still kind of in a larger piece from when I cut my card for this. So I'm actually going to show you a different card today. And this one, I have everything kind of all ready for it, but I wanted to show you there's a couple other things you could do with it. You could do this with pretty much any paper that you wanted to, because we have a zillion papers. One thing I did pull is I pulled the sentiment from Evergreen Elegance for the Merry Christmas, and I already have that mounted on a stamp. So I'm going to show you the card that I created with it, and I'm going to show you also something that I did wrong because I was just really in the feelings that I wanted to make a card, and I did not pre-measure my paper. So actually I did mine using Mary Merlot. So I do have Real Red and Cherry Cobbler because I really wasn't 100% sure if I liked this version or not. But so I created this card and I stamped Merry Christmas. So that's from Evergreen Elegance. I stamped the Merry Christmas and I actually did it in Mary Merlot because I was looking for something I thought would really nicely contrast but not clash with our soft succulent and evening evergreen combo. So that's kind of what I used for this one. So the Mary Merlot did really go nicely. So if you ever need to see if you like a color combination, holding your ink pads together, because if you put your stickers on correctly, you'll be able to look at it. Also, as a side note, in case they're ever backwards, I put the other language on the back, and then the other pieces I put on the sides. And then also there's one on the inside, which is the plain bar. So this was Mary Merlot. So you can see it is nicely coordinated. I really think Real Red would be a little bit too bright. So I think maybe this time I'm going to try Cherry Cobbler instead. And thinking like Magenta Madness isn't in color, Polished Pink. I think those would be too shocking as colors. The only other one that might work out kind of nicely looking at it because it's deep would be Blackberry Bliss. So if you looked at those three together, and granted, these aren't traditional Christmas colors because the greens aren't like your green, like a garden green or a pine green. So the Blackberry Bliss could be nice, but also even if you look at the Cherry Cobbler. So I'm going to keep Blackberry Bliss out. You never know. I'll stamp it. We can always do two of them. But the cool part about this is, if you can look, is the embossing. So what I did is there is a really fun paper. It's called cotton paper. And I will tell you, it's kind of like a slightly thicker tissue paper. It does have a little bit more weight to it, but it comes in both shades. So soft succulent, and also you can see comes in evening evergreen. So I do already have a piece of evening evergreen. But the other thing that I want to show you, when I cut this, you can see I had this really big piece. So I'm going to show you where I did a whoops with my card, but it kind of still works. So look at the card. Because of the way I measured it, I could not make myself cut this because it was so pretty. So what I did is I just cut this at 6 1/4 inches, and it does surprisingly still stand. Now, granted, you would have to make a custom envelope for this, and I originally thought maybe I could put another panel in the back and layer it over, but I thought, well, just for demonstration purposes, I'll show it to you this way. I did add a little strip of DSP because the one thing about the folder that I'm going to use, and I'll show you that, is, where did I put it? It was right here. Here we go. It is a little bit thinner because this is a slim folder. So you see it only embosses so much. What kind of works out nicely because you have this little strip to put your DSP on. So I kind of thought that would be a nice bargain. So I have partial embossing, and then I have a little strip of DSP. So you can see it'll fit right next to it. Now I did trim this one down, so it's going to be 5 inches instead of a uber large card that we don't have an envelope for. But you could use this. This is the pine bow, and this actually comes also with another folder, and you can, if you can see here, we have snowflakes. So you could use either of these. If you wanted to trade this off to a blue themed card, so kind of like tone on tone with blues. You could do the snowflake, which would be really fun. And then you could bring out one of our Hanukkah stamps. You could make this as a Happy Hanukkah card. Now, I'm not sure if snowflakes and Hanukkah necessarily go together, so don't quote me on that. The other one that would be kind of fun to use is the trees. We have these evergreens. This would be really pretty because it really deeply embosses, and it may be a little difficult to see, but it really deeply etches the paper because it is so thin. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to kind of repeat the same card, but we're going to change it up just a little bit. Put my Mary Merlot away. We're going to use the same piece. And I trimmed everything down so it was a little slimmer this time. So this will be an actual size card. So I have a piece of that paper, and this measures 4 by 5. I was going to trim it to 5 1/4, but sometimes the paper does get a little bit stretched out when you emboss it just because of the pressing of it. So I'm going to use that. I have a little 1/2 inch strip of DSP, so it's a 1/2 inch. I did leave it at 5 1/4 because I figured I could always trim it, but I wasn't sure if it was going to stretch anything. So I left this a little bit longer. And then I changed it up a little bit. So I actually used the die that you see here for the sentiment, and it does kind of barely fit on there, but I was okay with that. And then I die cut some pieces in soft succulent to coordinate. So I actually changed that up a little bit for this card, and I pre-die cut a few of the shimmery paper that we have, and this has just completely escaped my mind. I just looked to make sure that it was still in the catalog, but this is the paper that has that iridescent whiteness to it. It's really, really pretty. And then I went ahead and I cut a couple pieces of these as well in the soft succulent, just because I wasn't sure what I would want to put together, if I wanted to add them together or just do one or the other. And the other thing I added was just a few of the basic pearls. So let us get this together. I'm going to lay these all here. This is already scored, so we have 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half. And I do thank you all for joining me spur of the moment today. We have some heavy rain supposedly coming today, although it hasn't really rained much. It has been pretty windy, but so we didn't have school. They closed school. So I'm going to pop this piece in. Now I'm going to try to do one thing. I'm going to take care to either make sure that it's all the way at the top so it's fully embossed, or at the bottom. And I'm going to just do one little thing. I have some very used washi tape here, just because I don't want it to wiggle, because I want to make sure that I have a line so this little piece can fit on, kind of just like that. So I'm just going to fold this, and then I'm going to run this through my embossing die cut machine. And I actually have to change to a different plate. So I believe my blue plate is all I need for this. It does give a really deep etching, which is super nice. Let me get my one other thing I forgot. Wrong one. So regular platform, if you're still on your big shot. You may or may not be, and that's okay. And then I have my blue plate. I believe this is the one I want to use. Yes. All right, so I'm going to put this back because we are going to do a little bit of die cutting just with the stamping that we do. So you can see it really, really deeply etches, and I'm hoping this isn't going to rip my paper. That wasn't too smart. Nope, it's well used enough that it's okay. So it really deeply etches your paper, okay? One other thing that you can do with this paper, and someone told me this, and I actually didn't try it, but I wanted to. So I'm going to grab just a little piece just to look. But apparently, the other thing you can do, and I'm hoping one of these has water left in it. Yep, this one does. So if you have an aqua painter, someone was telling me that you can actually, grab my silicone mat here, you can actually wet the edge. Oh, heavens. I'm just going to try and doing this the reverse way. But you can take your brush. Now, you could do this with water, so I'm just dampening it. But you can wet the edge of the paper, and then apparently it will kind of tear really nicely for you and almost give you, we were talking about this when it first came out, that mulberry-esque paper. So I'll give this a little rip. And then you can get that rip. Now, it also kind of depends on probably how wet you wet it. And there are also two different sides to this. One is definitely more dull, and the other one has a little bit more of a sheen to it. I don't know if you can see the glare there at all. So I'm not sure that there is a particular side that you want to do, but you can also do something if you wanted to with tearing paper, if you wanted to piece something back together. So that is just another avenue for you to pursue. You could probably also give this a spritz with your Stampin' Spritzer if you still have some of the shimmer paint, which I always love using that. Now, I will tell you, it definitely etches this deeply enough that looking through it, you can see the paper behind it. So it is most definitely way more delicate than when it started. So what we're going to do is we're going to just lay this one here, and I may end up trimming this piece down anyway. Yep, because I don't want it to be too big. So I'm going to take it down to 5 is what that one is, but I want a little bit of a border, so I'm going to go down to 4 7/8, and that should be small enough. So let's see, give me just a little border, which really is all I wanted. Yep. So I'm going to put this, and the reason I'm using this side because it has that little gold embellishment to the cardstock. It's kind of up to you, or to the DSP. It's up to you if you do or don't want to do that. A little bit of liquid glue. And the only other thing I'm going to do with this is just make sure that it is directionally facing the correct way. It probably could go either way, but I kind of like it so it's going up and down correctly. So I'm just going to pop this one here, just like so. And I kind of usually wiggle it just to spread the, I got a little over gluey down here at the bottom, but it will dry clear. But I do it just to kind of spread the glue around a little bit. And then on the other side, I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm just going to put it down with some liquid glue. I'm going to try not to be too squeezy as I go. I like liquid glue more so though when you do embossing because it gets into the grooves and it helps it to stick to the base card a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this. And it is a tiny bit off because again, I did measure a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to pick one side and go down with it. And you know what? Now that I look at it, that looks nice. Okay. So to offset this, again, you could have trimmed this up just a smidge if you wanted to, but I'm going to just leave mine as it is. I'm okay with that. So the only other thing we have to do is we do have to stamp our Merry Christmas. So I think I'm going to actually try both of them. I'm going to do Blackberry Bliss and I'm going to do Cherry Cobbler. So I'm going to do Cherry Cobbler first, and we'll just do both die cuts here. So I'm just, again, stamping the Merry Christmas. It is a little bit tight of a fit, but I'm okay with just the teeny bit sticking off. All right, so there is Cherry Cobbler. And I already have some mist on here because I cleaned something, so I'm just going to wipe this. And then go to my Blackberry Bliss, and we'll see which one looks better. That's a little dark. Almost looks kind of close to black, so I'm going to still wait till I actually die cut just to make sure which one I prefer. And you probably could have stamped the Blackberry Bliss off a little bit first, but no worries. We're going to skip that for now. So again, that did come out of Evergreen Elegance, and this has some really nice sentiments as well. Now, I will say one of my favorite sentiments, and the reason that I bought this, aside from I really like the flowers, I love this. My heart is tied to you, tug if you need anything. I do have a very close friend of mine who recently lost her mother, and I unfortunately know how devastating that is, especially at a young age. And I'm not for a Merry Christmas, but I really want to send her this card because I think it will really touch her heart, I'm hoping. It's a delicate, delicate, delicate thing. Now, I will say one other thing. And I did do this the backwards way, but you know, all know I'm Polish and I am proud of being Polish, and I am also blonde, and sometimes I do things the wrong way. But I'm gonna try to go with die cutting this and see. What I did previously was I actually die cut it and then I did my best to line it up. So we're gonna see what this looks like. Wouldn't be me if I didn't do something the backwards way. How you like that? That's Had some luck right there. That lined up. I probably couldn't have laid that out better if I wanted to. I'm going to try this one more time and see if I can fit it in there. I'm actually going to flip it for this one. Let's see. Watch, this one probably won't turn out, but that's okay. All right, so same thing again. I'm just taping it in place. And I'm going to run this through. And pop this one out. I tell you, she must be watching over me making these cards. She did always say that I made very pretty cards. She's a funny lady. She certainly will be missed. All right, so just popping out these couple little extra pieces, and then we'll take a look and see. Now, one other thing that I like to do a lot of times particularly when I have something white, because I sometimes feel like it's too stark and I really can't get with the feeling of the white against the dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, now this one I missed a little bit of the S on the end, but so I really think I'm going to edge this with my markers. So I'll show you what I mean in case you've never done that before. So what you do is you kind of pick a contrasting marker. So you could either go with green, the light green, but I'm going to go with the dark just to give it a little bit something. So you just take the brush tip edge of your marker, and you can pick just one particular area. You don't have to do the whole thing. But I usually will just very gently trace. And kind of what it does is it helps this to pop a little bit off of there. So it's up to you. If you want to go all the way around, you certainly can. Just be mindful so you don't accidentally smudge onto a larger part of your die cut. So if this is something that you want to do, you can. You could also do this with a sponge. Wouldn't do it with a dauber. It's going to be a little bit too inky. So I'm sure everyone still has sponges laying around. I know I do, and I use them all the time. And if not, you can always just go with the white look, just kind of depending what you want to do. I am going to put some dimensionals on the back of this, but we're also going to attach our little leaves with some mini glue dots. So these are really nice for attaching things just with a teeny little bit. So let's just say we're going to go with our sentiment here. Okay. And I have all my little extra leaf images here. So what I would do is I kind of will start to lay this out to see if I like it. And I think I want to put a few of these pearlized paper. That's what it calls. See, finally came to me. I think I'm going to put a couple of these at the top and then a couple of these at the bottom. But I want to have one of them in a group of 3 because 3s are a little bit nicer to look at. So I'm going to go with that. So what I'm going to do is just take, and I'm going to sacrifice this bottom leaf here, and I'm going to put a glue dot onto it, and I'll do the same with this one. Okay, so I'm going to kind of piece these two together. I think I'm going to go this way. So I'm going to stick those two together, and then kind of just eyeballing. I'm going to go ahead and take my backing off here because it may end up helping me as well. So there. Now I do have my little mini glue dot here, which is exposed, but that's okay because we can always add something to that. And if we don't, I'll show you something else you can do. So I'm going to take the backing off of these other 2 dimensionals. And we're going to add some glue dots to these. And the reason I usually do these in the front is because I never really know how I'm going to layer them, and I don't necessarily want to stick it to the back if I don't know where I'm going to put it on the card. So I usually tend to put them on the front. Now with the pearlized paper, sometimes you might have to either use a fingernail to give it a good adhesion there, or you could always use your pick tool to pick it off as well. So it just kind of depends. So once again, I'm going to turn this over. And I kind of want one, whoops, I want one to go this way. And this is also kind of adhered with the dimensional, which is okay. We're going to put one this way, and then the last one going to kind of fit in back there, just like so. So if for any reason you feel like you've covered up your dimensional, or like for example this one, you can always put just a little bit of glue just on top of it. And if you are not quite sure where you want to put it, you can put a little bit of glue on it, because what it'll do is it gives you a little bit of movement, okay? So remember, we did have that little spot on the front, but we should be good. I'm going to make sure this is pretty well centered. And then just give it a press. So just like that. You just don't want anything hanging off, because at this point you might not be able to fit it in your card, okay? You could always use these two little guys if you wanted to add something to the inside as well. So you could stamp your sentiment there and put these on the bottom on the inside would be nice. You could layer them together. The other thing you could do is kind of have them so they were creating a shadow of each other, which is always a really fun look. So to do that, and I'm going to show you, we're going to do that. I'm wondering if it would be nicer to go this way. Let's see, with it sticking out. Yeah, I'm actually going to go backwards. So I'm going to put the coordinating color on top. So what I'm going to do is just a little teeny bit of glue. I don't mean a lot at all. A little bit on kind of your bigger leaved areas. Doesn't have to be the whole thing. And then you'll take your piece and you're going to set it on top. But you want it to be just slightly offset so you can see it. Just like that. Okay, then even if you wanted to, you could put it down here. You could even put it up on some dimensionals if you wanted to, but I'm going to just pop it on with some mini glue dots. So I'm just going to grab that. Oops. Put one more here and one on this. And since you have these two stuck together, it gives you a little bit bigger sticking power. Okay, so we're going to put this right down here at the bottom. Now, I did miss a teeny bit of glue on this one, so what you can always do is just lift, and this is just another way. You could put just a teeny drop of glue there and stick the whole thing down. So then you have just a little something there, and this will take a second just because of the glue. The top two will stick perfectly fine. And let's go with, for the inside, I still have to finish a little bit on the outside there, but let's celebrate everything. And I did not stick my stickers on this yet, so we're going to hope someone's on my side today when I'm lining this up. And I'm going to stick with, instead of going with the really vivid red, I'm going to do Evening Evergreen. And let me just test that since I haven't done it. Got a little smudgy there. All right, I'm going to put this here. Beautiful. And finally, we're going to just add a few little embellishments to the outside. So again, you could use pearls. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. And I'm going to show you these side by side so you can see them when we're finished. You could use pearls if you want. But another thing that's pretty fun, and it kind of depends on which way you want to go with your card. I love the Elegant Faceted Gems. Now you can see I love them so much I used all the small ones. So I do have another pack. I'm going to pull those out. You could also, if you were kind of sticking with the tone on tone, you could use the In Color Jewels, which these are really pretty as well. So maybe I'll take a look at these and see instead. So what I tend to do with these, and just so you can see them better, is I usually will use the sticky end of my Take Your Pick tool. You could use the flat end if you wanted to as well, but since we have a bigger glue dot right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up, and I'm going to go dark. I'm going to pick up the bigger one and stick it there, and then we'll stick a couple smaller ones here. Whoops, that didn't press as well as I thought it did. There we go. Another one here. Come on, let go. There we go. And I feel like we have one more little spot. We'll just do one more over here. There you go. So instead, you could certainly go to a different color. Now, looking at this, and granted, it is really light. Fresh Freesia would be really pretty played up on here, but I don't think Fresh Freesia would give you the same look that you're going for the Christmas, for the Merry Christmas, because the sentiment is just not quite dark enough. So, once again, kind of variations for this. You can do lots of different things. When I trimmed, I was just using a piece that I already had, which is why I went with the 5-inch, but we also have this little tall and skinny, kind of awkwardly sized card because the way I laid it out, but it does still stand, so we have that. You could always add, if you wanted something a little bit at the top, you could add a little piece of the pearlized paper up there as well. Might be kind of a cool addition because this does trim down really, really thinly. So you can always add a little something to the top if you wanted to. We could have layered this behind the piece. That would have been something else neat. So layering and just going for this as a whole, if you were to have this layered, so your embossed piece layered onto this, that would have bought you a little bit more space as well. So that would be another really pretty idea. However, I don't know if you would want to just put this piece as a layer. So if you were to do that, you could almost do little strips. So you could do maybe a strip at the top, a strip at the bottom underneath of the embossed layer before you laid it down. That's another good way to do it without wasting a whole piece of this beautiful pearlized paper. So I hope this gives you another idea of maybe something you could do with Eden's Garden. Again, it's not very Christmassy. All of the, except for Let's Celebrate Everything, all of the sentiments are pretty generic. You could use this for any time. But I think you could totally make it into a Christmas card. You can make it into a get well soon card, a happy birthday card, so many different things. It does have really, really beautiful sentiments in it. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to join me today. I know that I am on YouTube instead of Facebook. We've had some issues lately with Facebook, and it's not really posting correctly. So most likely this tends to be the place that you can find me more than anything. So I do appreciate you popping over if you did. If you have any questions about what I used today, again, this will be coming out to order very soon. It starts, I believe it is November 2nd for customers. So right now it's still pre-order for demonstrators, but there is a die set. You also have this really nice layering, bordering piece that you could have used as well. You could have even cut something and layered this behind. That would give you something else additional that you could lay it with as well. But it's a really beautiful set. I haven't used any of the stamped images thus far. I've used the sentiments and I've used the die. So I'm sure I will get to using some of the stamped images as well. Just haven't gotten there quite yet. And the other thing is, remember what you have on hand is also sometimes really beautiful. Maybe you don't have to buy the DSP. Maybe you only like the sentiments in the die, and you could pair this. There are so many other pieces. So just for example, out of the greens. Now, granted, you would have to pick a different background, but you could use a piece of the DSP with the dots, and you could layer that on the side with the Christmas Pine Bows embossing folder, and then you could make this into a traditional color. So this uses shaded spruce, old olive, and real red. So then what you would do is just use your shaded spruce or old olive as your background piece. You could emboss this piece. I think this still would coordinate well with it no matter what. I probably wouldn't use the lighter color. I would use the darker color, but it still would really make a beautiful card. Or you could skip the greens and you could go with red as a red of a base, and then you could use the evergreen paper and use that with it and just use a strip of DSP. But we have lots of DSPs, a bunch of them carried over from last year, and they're being used again, so you could use those as well. But this is definitely a really beautiful suite, and I hope you take the time to check it out. If you have any questions, you can always send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much again for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and stay safe and dry wherever you are. Thanks for watching.